What's up? Back again with another episode of the Too Tall Sports Podcast. My name is Brett Lauren, your host, and you can always find the show at Too Tall Sports Podcast on all platforms, on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, everywhere. Please subscribe 5-star if you can, and write a review. That would help out on Apple Podcasts. If you don't know how to use it, reach out to me. I can help you. I'm sure someone in your family can help you. Anyway, today's episode is with a former coach of mine, actually in Little League. Lucky enough, it was a former big leaguer, Mike Witt. He's one of 23 men in history of baseball to throw a perfect game in the major leagues. So, huge accomplishment. He had a great career, and we talk all about his career and kind of the modern day pitcher today and some of his experiences going through the system with the Angels and the Yankees. So, great episode with Mike Witt. Once again, Too Tall Sports Podcast. You can find me everywhere, and follow me on social media for all the new episodes. Enjoy. Welcome back to the Too Tall Sports Podcast. My next guest is a former Major League Baseball player. He is one of 23 pitchers in history to throw a perfect game. He is a two-time All-Star also, and he was third in Cy Young voting in 1986. He also coached his son Justin and I in Little League together, and he kind of taught me a lot about pitching and kind of kickstarted my career. And he's one of an early mentor of mine, so I'd love to have him on the show. Mike Witt, how you doing, Mike?
Good, Brett. How you been, bud?
I'm good. Thanks for coming on with me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, my pleasure, man.
Yeah. I want to get into your career. Obviously, some of the older generation would remember you playing for the California Angels at the time, before they became the LA Angels of Anaheim. So, if anybody was watching baseball in the '80s, they definitely would recognize you.
Right. When we had the patch of California on our uniform sleeves, that's actually when I was growing up. I was born and raised in Buena Park, so I got to go watch Nolan Ryan and Tanana, those guys. But I always remember the big patch of California on the back of their jackets that they used to wear. I was like, dang, that's pretty cool. I like that.
Yeah, definitely. And things change, logos change. They got to make money and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But you're a true Southern California guy, like you said. And even though we'll get to you end up playing for the Angels in a little bit, but you being 6'7", just like me, I did read that you were a pretty good basketball player back in the day. So I wanted to see, before you really took on baseball, were you thinking about playing basketball at all as a career?
I played basketball in high school just because I was kind of good at it and I was fairly tall. I grew one. So when I entered high school, I was probably 6'1", right? The summer of my sophomore year, I went from 6'2" to 6'7", and it was on, right? And I had some pretty good athletic ability. I thought, okay. And I had really good, senior year and whatever. And I had a chance to go to Santa Clara to play basketball and baseball. And I was all set to do that. I actually signed the deal. And then the draft came after I'd signed to go there. And the Angels took me with their third pick. And I thought, this is too good to be true. I can't pass this. So I ended up signing out of high school. But yeah, I played in high school and I got better as it went on. And I could see myself once I got to college getting even better. But, I think there would have been a time when I had to have made a choice between basketball and baseball.
Right.
And I think baseball probably would have won out just because of, you know how that goes. You don't jump high enough and you don't shoot well enough.
Were there any other colleges you were thinking about going other than Santa Clara?
Yeah, so there was some, USC, UCLA, San Diego State didn't even offer me high school, baseball or basketball. It's like they didn't even know I was on the map, right? And I was like, dang, what is up with this? And so it was mostly smaller schools, San Jose State. I think Fullerton dropped a little note here or there, but that was about it. So there wasn't a lot of buzz or anything like that. But the Angels saw something in me that nobody else did. And I thought, well, good, because I believe in myself too. So let's do it.
Yeah. And 1978 draft, you get picked by them out of high school. You're 17, 18 years old and you're going to pro ball. Where was your kind of were you ready for that jump mentally, like maturity wise?
Well, I think one of the reasons I did sign is I was I was ready to not that I was ready to leave the house, but I was okay with leaving the house. Let me put it that way.
Okay.
Um, and it was just it happened to be the Angels too. If it was anybody else, Kansas City or Milwaukee, I probably wouldn't have signed. But it's my hometown team. I grew up watching Ryan and Tanana, and I thought, man, if I fast track this and get there in about 3 or 4 years, I got a chance to pitch with these guys. And so that was my mindset. So it wasn't really a thought of, am I ready for this? It was like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this and give it everything I got and see what happens. But um, I adjusted. I just didn't have a problem traveling and going away and doing all that stuff. I actually looked forward to it. It's fun. It's funny is I signed when I was 17, go up to Idaho Falls in a rookie league half season. And I'm playing with college guys that played at Oral Roberts and Cal State Fullerton. And they are just bitching and moaning the whole time on these 12-hour bus rides. And I'm like, I'm loving life. I'm a 17-year-old kid getting 500 a month going, I love this stuff. And it's a mindset. I just kind of adapted to it. And I thought, man, this is how it's going to be. So I'm going to do it, make the best of it.
And so, I mean, you weren't in the minor leagues very long, and we'll get to your big league career in a sec, but I want to just ask you about the minor league experience for you. Even though you were only in it for a couple of years, was there any time when you were like, did you ever stumble at all in the minor leagues, or was it pretty smooth for you?
Okay, so that first half year, I went to rookie league, which is kind of a mix of high school draftees and college guys that are coming off their season. And I went 7-0. I had like no problems. I was like, Yahoo, this is how it goes.
Right.
The next year, they send me to Salinas, which is kind of a high A team where everybody's a little bit more skilled and they understand. And I struggled. I think I was below 500. Maybe a 10-12 record as a starter, and I was like, that was not good. Go to spring training the next year. I'm working out with the same guys I just played with from single A Salinas that are going to end up going to El Paso double A. And I have a great spring. I'm getting guys out, double A guys. And they go, no, you're going back. You need to prove that you can do it. I thought, oh God. So that was a setback. But I started that year 7-2 or 8-2. And that half year I got bumped up to double A halfway through. So I did have a setback, went to double A that year, did okay. And that was my third year. So they had to make a decision to put me on the roster or not, 40-man roster. Put me on the roster, invited me to spring training. I tear it up in spring training. Who knew? I go 3-0 with a point something ERA, and I go, you made the team.
Wow. And you're only 20 years
Yeah.
old.
I was 20 years old. That's right. Yeah.
I mean, that's even in today's standards, you're flying through the system at that point. Like that doesn't happen that often.
Yeah, but if I think back on it, and this is kind of the mindset that I had, is I was trying to, not that I was trying any harder, but my goal was I want to get to Anaheim and pitch with Nolan Ryan, right?
Okay.
Well, he left in 1979. My first year he left in 80. After the 80 season, my first year was 81. So there goes that plan, right?
Yeah.
No. Pitched against him a couple times, but that was not the same as being on the same team with him.
Yeah. No, for
Yeah.
sure. And I mean, as far as your first few years in the big leagues, now you're in the show, you're part of the 25-man roster. What were the first few years like before the mid 80s when you really started dominating the league? But just those first, 81 to 84?
81 to 80, 83.
Yeah.
I was kind of figuring it out. The first year was a strike year. So 81, we played 2 months, went on strike for 2 months, and then came back for 2 months. So I had a hiatus right in the middle of that season. I think I was 8-9 or something like that. I was like third in rookie of the year, second, whatever. And I thought I threw pretty well. I was spot starter, reliever, in and out. Did okay. I'm thinking, okay, well, I kind of figured some things out. Went back for my second year and did not do as well as my first year. And that's when the lightning, the lights went off and everything. But I got a chance to go to Venezuela and play winter ball because I didn't pitch that much. So I figured some things out there, but I came back in 83 and it just was not good. It was like AAA as your name on now. Here, went in and out of the pen, just couldn't figure out. Went back to Venezuela after that year, and something clicked. I think I went 8-1 in Venezuela against big league guys, AAA guys, and just kind of figured it out. Came back in '84, and that was my first big year. 115, perfect game, all that stuff. I just
Yeah.
something clicked in my brain.
Yeah, I was
And
going to
it was
ask you
just
about
it was
that.
on. Yeah.
Did you change your pitching repertoire at all, or was it just mental, or just something in your
Uh,
mechanics?
it was a mechanical thing, but it was a mindset as well, and it was a lot more consistent. So whatever I did at the time, I might have changed a leg kick or a pause or something, but it made the delivery consistent. So like 9 out of 10 deliveries were the same exact thing. The ball coming out of my hand hot, breaking ball coming out of the same, all that stuff. And I carried that into spring training. I carried it right on through the year. And it was just a matter of, kind of trusting what I was doing was right and sticking with it, trying to tinker with.
Yeah, definitely. And as you mentioned, that was 84 was a huge year for you. At 15-11, I think your ERA was 3.47, and so you clearly were coming into your own there. And last game of the season, September 30th, 1984, you're in Texas against the Rangers, and you throw a perfect game. As I mentioned off the top, only one of 23 guys in history to ever do that. I mean, how do you explain what happened that day?
Well, that was like we were saying, that was the first year that I really had a really good year, and I was on the verge of I had 14 wins going into the last day of the season. I thought 15 is a lot different than 14 in my mind. And I'm going against Charlie Huff, who's a pretty good pitcher. He's having a really good year, and he might have had a contract on the line and all that stuff. So he's not just going out there to throw it out there, right? So I knew if I really wanted this, I had to have a little different mindset that day and kind of stick with whatever I was doing. And bullpen was great. Sometimes you have a great bullpen and you just suck.
Yeah.
And sometimes you have a crappy bullpen and it's just like lightning. And once you get in the game, well, this happened to be a good bullpen, good mindset, good free flow. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. And it just kind of just flowed right in through the game, all through 9 innings, like 3 up, 3 down. Let's go.
And obviously, you and your catcher must have been on the same page, right? That helps out a lot.
Yeah, he was. I didn't shake him off much. Bob Boone was one of the greatest catchers ever. So once he became a fixture in my starts, it was like I'm just going to trust this guy because he understands hitters better than I do, obviously. So and he sees things that I don't sometimes. But I think I might have shaken him off once or twice that day at the most. And I, the greatest thing was at the end of it, everybody's like, "Oh, man, how was that for you?" I said, "I'm so happy for Booney right now. I'm so happy Bob Boone caught a perfect game. That's just awesome."
No, that's great. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, when you don't have to shake off the catcher, it's a totally different game.
Right.
Just
Right.
yeah,
There's no. Well, I'm not going to say there wasn't any thinking going
sure,
on, but it was like automatic. It was almost like I'm starting my windup before he gives a sign because I know what he's going to put down.
right,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's awesome. So yeah,
Yeah.
huge accomplishment. So kind of from 84 to 87, I mean, you led the Angels in wins, strikeouts, innings pitched, and complete games. I mean, you really were in your prime. Um, what were those, 3-4 years like where you're just in complete control? Your numbers are great. I'll talk about your all-star appearances in a second, but just from 84 to 87, how did you feel? Were you the ace of the staff at that point?
Yeah, so 84 was my first really good year. And that was, I don't think anybody even won more than 12 that year. Um, so that mindset started after that year is that, okay, I know I can win 15. How about 18, 20, whatever. So that wasn't, can I do this anymore? It was like, what more could I do now? So it, I did become the ace probably I think four consecutive years. I think I was opening day starter 6 times. So '84 through '89, '88, something like that. But that first year, '84, started that streak of probably 6 solid seasons, or 5 or 6 seasons.
Yeah, definitely. All-Star in 1986 and 87. Your first one was in Houston at the Astrodome, and the other one, of course, is the Oakland Coliseum, which is still standing today. Did you have a better experience at either one, or was it both just great to be an All-Star either way?
Well, I can say this because this was my experience. Was I had a great experience both times. Okay, so the game was on Tuesday. I think that it's a Tuesday game. Both times I made the team, I pitched 9 innings on Sunday. So I had no chance of pitching. I had no chance of pitching. I was like, the game in Oakland went into overtime, extra innings. I think they went 10 or 11 innings. I'm the last guy in the bullpen. And I'm like, this keeps going, I might get in there. And I was hanging. I was through 100 and something pitches 2 days ago. I don't know if I can do this, but it didn't work out. So the experience, it was awesome. It was awesome, but not getting in the game, that was not fun.
Right. It was probably, maybe it was a little more relaxing for you. You knew you probably weren't going to pitch, so you can kind of enjoy all the festivities and all that stuff.
Yeah, but by the same token, neither manager, which was John McNamara and I can't even remember the other one. They never told me I wasn't pitching. They just said you're the last guy out of the pen. I thought,
I see.
Okay, so it might happen.
Yeah. Was there anything memorable about either one of those games, as far as like who you saw there or who you got to be in the clubhouse with, any of that stuff?
No, I knew, there was some guys that were more talkative than others, obviously. And you get to see egos. You get to see egos firsthand, right? Not just facing them in the batter's box. It's like, wow, that guy really is an idiot. He is an a-hole. That guy's an a-hole. That guy. And then you go, this guy, I thought he was an a-hole. He's not an a-hole at all. He's a good guy.
Right. You really don't know until you meet these guys.
Yeah, exactly. That was a good experience, knowing now that I knew them, facing them, I go, okay, I got this guy. I know his personality now.
Right.
If I come up and in on this guy, he's not going to get really pissed off.
Yeah. Not going to charge a mound on you.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So, I mean, yeah, everything was seemingly going great. And I'm assuming just based on the years, you started having kids. And so, from 87 to 90, you were still with the Angels. What were those last few years with the Angels like? So
I think starting in, I don't even know, 87, probably 88, 89, the trend was not going up anymore. I was not trending up. If I was stock, my chart would not be trending up.
I see.
So I was kind of flattening out and even in the decline from about 88 to 90, somewhere in there. So it was a little bit stressful mentally because I'm still the ace and they're still looking at me I threw a lot of innings though. I kept putting my innings out there, never got hurt. But the results just were not the same as they were in the previous years. So it wasn't like I saw the writing on the wall. It was like I was trying to figure things out. It was just not, whatever I did was not working.
Sure.
And then eventually they ended up trade me in 90. So
yeah, and I don't remember if I knew you got traded to the Yankees, but yes, you ended up getting traded to the Yankees, which is big enough in itself, huge move anyway. But as we talked about before the show, you got traded for Dave Winfield. I don't know how many people know that fact, but just being traded straight up for someone like that, and you going to New York, where was your head at that point?
Well, first of all, it wasn't like I saw the writing on the wall. It was just the first couple, it might have been the first month of the season, actually, 1990.
Yeah.
I'm in the pen. I didn't make the starting road. They had just gotten Mark Langston. They had, I think we had 5 studs already. And I was trying to fit in there somehow. I'm just like, I don't see where I'm here. So I ended up throwing Mark Langston. I threw a no-hitter together in 1990.
That's right.
I finished up his first start in Anaheim, and I thought, okay, well, I might be able to do some long relief here. Possibly if somebody gets hurt, I can slip back in there and see. But that first month, um, I think by me doing fairly well in the pen kind of increased my trade value at the time. So and Steinbrenner had always liked. He tried to sign me a couple years prior in 1988 as a free agent, and he tried to sign me. And so he always liked me, and he saw that I was kind of doing okay. I was doing all right, and he didn't like Dave Winfield. Oh, he hated the guy. So he
Wow.
goes, all right, let's get rid of this guy and let's get this guy. So I ended up getting traded for Winfield.
That's crazy. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah.
for you being, growing up in Anaheim, playing for the Angels, you only knew one organization. So what was it like when you got to New York? You got to see something different, change of scenery, change of everything. How did you like? What was your mindset then when you got to New York?
Well, the good thing was I had been in the league for 10 years, right? So
Yeah.
I had made trips to New York twice a year for the last 10 years. So I pitched there, I don't know, 15 times maybe. I had been to how many games? 60, 100 games or whatever.
Yeah.
So I knew what the atmosphere was like. I knew what the city was like.
The
I could
media
see how
pressure.
well, I didn't know that
Okay.
because I didn't get that as a visiting player, right? But I saw how the fans treated the Yankee players. If you sucked, you better watch out. If you
Yeah.
were doing well, good for you, good on you, man. You're one of us. So I saw how that dynamic happened, right? So when I showed up, I was like, all right, I know this is totally opposite from West Coast Orange County sports writers and blood. These guys are ruthless.
Yeah.
So I knew my mindset. It's a big trick you play with your mind, and that's why most guys are in the big leagues is because their mind's a little bit better than the other guys. Double A, triple A guy. Not to mention talent, but if you can trick your mind into believing things, believe it or not, it works, right? So I just tricked my mind into thinking I'm gonna handle these guys like they're nothing, right? But they were bad. I mean, if I was good,
Yeah.
if I was good, they were my friends. If I was not, man, I was going to read about it the next day. But even beyond all that, it's the fans, man. They let you know. Not that you don't already know. You just gave up a 3-run bomb, right? They
Yeah.
let you know.
Right. Well,
But I loved it there. I love playing in New York City. I mean, you if I had to get traded anywhere, and there were options there. I think Boston was an option, which is brutal as well. But I could have gone to Cleveland or Milwaukee or some team that wasn't contending or, big city. But when they said I was going to the Yankees, I was like, I thought about it for about 2 seconds and I go, oh, okay. All right.
I'm on board with
Pack,
that.
yeah, let's pack up my stuff and I
Right.
gotta head out of town. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And just as a side note, just because we're both in Orange County, and I grew up a Dodger fan actually, but the Angels are close by. Do you think that it's just there's a lack of media pressure out here, a lack of fan? There's too much to do versus the East Coast. They care so much more about their team success.
Yeah. I don't know because Dodger fans are diehard.
Yeah,
They're
they're
diehard.
good.
I don't know if Angel fans are diehard. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Um, there's in the media itself. I mean, that's
yeah.
just
It's
it
just
goes without saying.
yeah,
It's just different. Um, there are some guys that that actually there was actually a couple writers that were Southern California writers that went back to New York and became writers back there, and they're actually on MLB now. And they were New Yorkers though. They were New Yorkers that came to California and then went back, so they
right.
already understood that. But with the difference, if I could put my finger, I'd tell you, but it's just more relaxed out here. Let me put
Yeah,
it that way. If you don't have a good couple weeks, it's like, I'll figure it out. If you don't have a couple good weeks in New York, you better watch out, man.
yeah, yeah. But I like, you could say it brings a sense of urgency to winning, because if you don't win, they're going to let
Exactly,
you know about it. So it
exactly. But
makes
that,
yeah,
yeah, and back when I was in New York, I had Steinbrenner, right? So there was a sense of urgency. There was like, we are going to the playoffs, and you're either going to get on board and do this, or you're out of here.
yeah,
And I mean, they still have that mentality now.
Yeah.
right? Whereas, the Dodgers are kind of on a good roll right now because they got studs and they got a good front office and they got things rolling in their minor leagues. I
Right.
mean, it's every guy they call up comes up and hits a bomb, or he
Right.
throws 99,
Right.
or or he's a
Yeah.
great shortstop. Um, so, I applaud the Dodgers for that, but I think the Angels need to kick it into gear, for sure.
Yeah. Definitely. But yeah, I still want to go back to the '90s. So you spent 3 years in New York, and your career, comes to an end after '93, I believe. And you're still only 32 years old at the time, 33 years old. So, you know, that's fairly young for most standards. But you had 12 years in the big leagues already. So,
Right,
how did you
right.
kind of handle the transition of leaving the game when you're still pretty young?
Well, what's funny is so I had Tommy John surgery in 1991.
Okay.
Came back from that in 93 and was doing okay. I had some really good starts. My elbow felt great, and I developed some type of shoulder. I tore my rotator or parts of the rotator, and I didn't know it. And so I kept trying. I got cortisone shots. I kept trying to come back. Um, thinking the same thing. I'm 33 years old. I got 5 more years to go here.
Yeah.
And so I came back to California, had the surgery. I said, listen, if it's like because I just came off a 2-year rehab for my elbow. And I told Dr. Yoakum, who was doing the surgery, I said, listen, if it's a major reconstruction where I got to spend 2 more years and come back at 35 or 6 even, and shoulder's not like an elbow.
No.
It's much worse. I said, just clean it up and wake me up and say, be on your way, right? So I was hoping it was a cleanup job and I could come back. So I wake up and he goes, it was not good. I needed to do the whole thing. And I thought, okay, well, that's it. Because I'm not going to spend 3 more years to possibly come back. And so that was what ended it right there.
Yeah.
Um, but funniest thing is I got a call the next year from Seattle. So in 1994, or that before that spring training of '94, they called me up. They go, "How you feeling?" I said, "He cleaned it up well enough to where I could throw a pretty good BP. I could throw from in front of the mound, in front of the
Yeah.
rubber. So 50 feet, I could throw pretty good, right?"
Yeah.
I go, my arm feels great. And he goes, "Well, what'd you have done?" I said, "Well, I just cleaned it up." I said, "But I needed a major reconstruction." He goes, "Oh, oh, we didn't know that." Yeah. So, I mean, I was at that point. It was like, God, did I mess this up, or should I have gone for it? But nowadays, if you have that same surgery, you're probably looking at about a year, a little over a year, and you're back in it, right?
Right.
Back then, it was not perfected, and it was
No.
2+, and it was just like, and I knew that, so I just cashed it in right there and said,
Yeah.
"That's it."
Sure.
Yeah,
Well, I mean, he had a great career. 12 years in the big leagues is a long time.
yeah,
So at least you had that.
yeah.
Yeah. And so you ended up, I meet you in the mid '90s, and I'm playing Little League Baseball. I kind of know what I'm doing. I can't really hit that well. So I'm like, hey, let's just throw the big guy out there and make him a pitcher. And so your son Justin and I played Little League ball together, and you were one of my first coaches, luckily, because you had so much experience in the big leagues. So what do you remember coaching Little League and having all these kids on the team?
Well, that was a good part about not playing baseball, right? Is I was done with so I could spend time with my kids now and kind of enjoy what they were doing and help them as much as I could, help their buddies as much as I could. Um, so I kind of jumped right into coaching at that point. So I started at the high school and I was coaching at Dana Hills right down the street for
Yeah.
whatever. And then Justin started Little League. I started coaching up his teams and him. And I don't even know if you remember, but he used to catch. He was catching in Little League.
Yeah.
I thought I never asked him to. I thought he could be a second baseman his whole life, right? He goes, "No, I'll catch. I'll catch." I said, well, you pretty much have to because nobody else on this team can catch. but it worked out,
Yeah.
But I do remember we Tanner Shepherds was also on the team,
Yeah.
and but I just remember you guys were athletic enough to kind of when I would tell you to do something or try to do something,
Yeah.
that it wasn't like a total, like, I don't understand what you're saying. It was like, okay, I'll try this. You cut on a little bit quicker than Tanner did to the curveball and stuff.
Yeah.
He had a little more. I don't know what the word is. More. He's like Joe Adele is right now. He was raw. Tanner was
Uh-huh.
raw, right? He could
Yeah.
throw gas, but he could probably throw it out of the stadium too, right?
Yeah.
But he kind of figured that out as time went. But it
Right.
was great. It was great to have guys that kind of understood what I was saying and trying to actually do what I'm telling them, and then figuring it out. Eventually, within a week or a month or whatever, spin and all that stuff, and that was fun to watch.
Yeah, and it just even like the grip of a curveball and just how to throwing it and making it look also like your fastball and the release point, everything. I just remember nobody, most of the little league coaches, as you know, are dads. Like they
Yeah,
didn't play anything serious, but I just remember
right.
like mechanically and just some mindset things you were able to help me out a lot, and that kind of really kickstarted my career as a pitcher too. So.
Well, that's kind of what I'm saying is I'm talking to an 11 or 12-year-old and you're getting it and like,
Yeah.
wow, this is pretty fun. Because at the time, like I said, I was talking to high school kids that were like, what? I
Yeah.
don't understand. Well, how do I wrap my fingers around the ball? And okay, let's try something else. Let's go to a
Yeah.
cutter.
That's funny you bring up the cutter because I did want to ask you about that. So, obviously I don't know, but in the 80s, I'm guessing there weren't that many guys throwing cutters. And now it's the evolution of the cutter is insane. A lot of guys throw them. What do you remember about, like, did guys used to throw that pitch, and kind of how do you differ on that?
Yeah, there was guys that threw it. I can't. They would. It was a variation of their slider, though, right?
Right.
Um,
It was like too hard for a slider, but
Yeah,
yeah.
right. And some guys call it a slider, but I could clearly see that there was like 3 miles an hour off your fastball,
Right.
right? And when they spun it, it was more like that's not a slider, that's a curveball now, right?
Yeah.
So semantics is one thing. You could call something whatever you want to.
Yeah.
Mariano Rivera threw a cutter, right?
Right.
But it moved, it cut a good foot, it seemed like,
Right.
right? Which is a guy's slider nowadays. It didn't have tilt on it or anything, but it was a cutter.
Right.
But there were guys throwing it when I was playing. I actually tried to throw it. Actually, Jim Abbott, when Jim Abbott signed with the Angels, he was a slider guy, but he threw a cutter off his fastball, like a natural cutter.
Okay.
And I'd try to pick his brain. Like, well, in the years where I was not trending up anymore, I thought, okay, let me see what he's doing over here. He actually
Sure.
got me off. And I just could not make the ball cut. I just couldn't. And then I went to a fork ball or a split finger fastball, could not make it dive. I was like, I'm screwed. I've got everything. I got all these people trying to help me here, and I can't figure it out. So.
Right.
But did you end up throwing a cutter?
I never threw a cutter. No, I mean,
Yeah.
you always fool around with it. I was mostly, as I got older, I went from curveball to slider and then threw a changeup also. But yeah, sometimes if you don't make it cut, it's just going to back up and be a cement mixer, and it's
That was mine. I would
Yeah.
actually do that. I would work on it in the outfield, boom, and I'd get into a game, and I thought, this is a great time for a cutter right here. And I'd throw a cutter, and it would just stay right in the middle of the plate.
Yeah.
And a guy'd pop it upward, and the catcher would come out and go, what was that? I said, I'm trying to throw a cutter. He goes, don't do that again.
I know you hate. Well, as soon as you let it go, you know if it's going to be good or not.
Oh,
Yeah.
God.
And just some general questions back in your day, who are some of the best hitters that you faced, or just guys that you really had a tough time with, whether they were, Hall of Famers or not?
Well, most of the Hall of Famers I faced were the toughest hitter I faced.
Right.
But there is a guy that should be in the Hall of Fame, I think, that was one of the toughest guys I had to get out. I mean, his brain worked like nobody else's. Lou Whitaker, second baseman in Detroit.
Okay.
And he played in this little bandbox in Detroit where right field actually the upper deck hung over right field. So if you hit a pop-up, the right fielder would be ready to catch it and go on the upper deck, home run. Well, he knew how to play that. He knew how to play that all day long. But one of the smartest, one of the best second basemen, I just could not. He would think ahead of me. Like I had him set up for so many strikeouts and fastball ends, and he'd be all over him, and he'd just be like, hit the home run and look around the bases, and he's just looking at me like, "Why'd you throw that, man?"
It's just some guys have your number though, right? It's just
Yeah,
weird. They see the ball well out of your hand. For some reason, some guys just pick up your stuff better.
yeah, but he was. Yeah, I think he did it more than just me. Because speaking of the All-Star game, so going
Yeah.
back to the Houston, my first one, um, 1986 or 85. We're playing in the dome, Astrodome, where it's you can't hit a home run, right? It's still far. Lou Whitaker's facing Dwight Gooden, and I don't know, third or fourth inning, and he's blowing in 99, and he back in the day, you wanted to keep the ball down at the knees ground. Well, Dwight Gooden was throwing chest high stuff like they do today, 90, and Lou Whitaker, he gets him 0-2 or 1-2, and he throws him a curveball, and he takes him dead center. And I go, he comes back in the dugout. I go, there's no way you're looking for a curveball there. He goes, yes, I was. Oh, yes, I was. I said, what?
Whoa.
I know. I'm going, okay. I can't figure you out, man. I would have. There's no way he's going to hit a curveball out right off of
Yeah.
Dwight Gooden.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Jeez.
one of the best. I mean, toughest guys. It's game situation, whatever. He was the guy I couldn't get out.
Yeah. Wow, that's pretty crazy. And then
Yeah.
as far as pitching goes, I know you grew up, it sounds like a Nolan Ryan fan. He may have been your idol at the time. Was there anybody else besides him, or was it pretty much just him that you thought he's really the best pitcher I've ever seen?
Well, funny enough is so I grew up in Buena Park, which is about, I don't know, it's not that far from Dodger Stadium from
Yeah.
Buena Park, right? So I grew up when I was a kid, from the time I can remember till I was probably, I don't know, 10 or 11 years old. I grew up a Dodger fan, Vince Scully, Farmer John hot dogs and all that
Right.
stuff, right? So I got to watch Don Sutton and Claude Osteen and Tommy John. I watched some pitchers pitch, right? Um, and then I got to be about 13 or 14, and Nolan Ryan's in town now, right? And I'm like, man, Anaheim State's not that far. Go down there. So it was one of those things, right? Just when you see somebody in person, I didn't go to a lot of Dodger games in person, so it was
Right.
always on TV. But when I would watch him, um, back in the day, even he couldn't draw a crowd at Anaheim Stadium, like 5,000 people, right? You buy a ticket, upper deck, fifth inning, you're down in the front row, right?
Right.
So to watch him pitch in the front row and just hear the ball out of his hand, bam, bam, fastball. I mean, just I I kind of like that. I kind of like what he's doing there. I want to be that guy. I want to be him. And then in the mid '70s, Frank Tanana came in, and he was an opposite. He was a 96-7 guy, left-handed. I thought, dang, how did anybody ever get a hit off these guys?
Yeah.
Um, so that kind of kicked it in gear. I was already playing little league and all that, but that kind of kicked it in gear of, man, that was pretty cool. I want to see if I can do this against these little leaguers, right?
Sure.
And then I kind of grew, like I was saying, 6'2", 6'7". All of a sudden, I got this body that won't quit, and I've got a curveball, and I think I signed out of high school throwing 85, and in 3 years, I gained 25 pounds. I went from 85 to 93, and I was like, bang,
Yeah.
here
You
it
grew
is.
into your body, you know?
And I did
Yeah.
exactly right. But I
Um,
had the control before I actually grew into my body, which
you
was
got to
awesome.
learn how to
Yeah,
pitch exactly.
yeah,
And yeah, speaking of that, based on, kind of how you came up and the way it was almost like people were pitching scientists. They really thought the game through, and it was like
yeah.
Greg Maddux and people like that. Nowadays, it's a lot of throwers that are just, trying to light up the radar gun. What do you see in today's pitcher that maybe is lacking from when you came up?
Uh, Shoot, I
Or is it just, they're just different nowadays?
well, when I came up as a starter, right? Your job was to throw 9 innings, right?
Yeah.
Finish the you finish what you start, right?
Yeah.
That's the whole thing.
Yeah.
Um, can you see me?
Oh,
Gosh
yeah.
darn it. Um, so that was a mentality in itself, but you had to figure out how you're going to get to the seventh, eighth, ninth inning, right? It's not by going 3-2 on everybody,
Right.
right? So if you can get a guy to hit a first pitch sinker or a 1-0 sinker or a changeup, but something where you're not 2-0, 2-1, 3-0, 3-1. And that's what I see now, especially when the young guys, right? If you're watching Cole, the guy in New York, if
Yeah.
you watch Scherzer, not so much Strasburg. Strasburg, he tends to work counts.
Yeah.
Kershaw, they get ahead of guys.
They're strike
They don't
throwers.
they don't want to throw a lot of pitches, right?
Right.
If I can get a guy out in 2 pitches, well, okay. If I happen to have a good day and strike 10 guys out today, I threw a lot of pitches, but at least I'm in the 7th inning, right? So is mentality. I think I see a lot of guys nibble, nibble, nibble. Next thing you know, it's 3 2/3 and they're out.
Yeah.
but it's changed. It's changed. It might have changed actually when you were playing, to where they're going pitch counts even in the minor leagues now,
Yeah.
to where they don't want to hurt the guy's arm. And I get that, and Nolan Ryan had it right when he was running the Rangers. He had everybody in there. Did you pitch for the Rangers?
No.
No. Even in the minor leagues, he had them stretching out because he wanted to go back to the old way, the old mentalities. When you get up here, I want you to go. I want you to, if you're going good, keep going, Right
Yeah.
nowadays, it's like a young guy goes 5 innings. It's like, hey, I did a great job.
Yeah. And it's all specially bullpen people, and it's different.
Yeah, right.
Last random thing I got for you here. I looked up some of your history, and you were actually on an episode in 1985 of The Jeffersons. Surprisingly, I saw you were on there as IMDb. You can check it out if you're listening. But Reggie Jackson was in that episode too. What do you remember about like filming that show and the whole experience?
So that was 84. So
84.
I got that was my perfect game, right? So
okay.
So I think it was either the producers or the writers were big baseball fans and Reggie Jackson fans.
Okay.
So after the season, they asked Reggie and myself and Brian Downing to go down because they had written a script for Wheezy, who was Louise Jefferson.
Right.
That George is doing something baseball wise, and she's going to go down to the stadium and talk. So I wish I could remember what the whole thing was about. It was about George doing something, and she was trying to help him out, getting Reggie's autograph or something like that. But she had to come into the locker room, and she didn't know she was in the locker room. But she walks in the shower, which is where I am. It was kind of a funny, as I'm reading, I'm going, that's pretty funny. But as I'm watching it on TV, I'm going, that's so cheesy. That was so bad.
That's pretty cool. You got to be on the show.
Yeah, it was fun. It was fun because, I mean, Jeffersons were iconic at the time, right? All in the Family, Jeffersons, blah, blah, blah. I thought, man, that'd be pretty cool to be on that show. Yeah. And it was a great experience going up there and doing that. I think we spent a week doing the whole rehearsals and all that stuff, but it was fun. It was fun to do.
No, that's good.
I still get a residual like twice a year. I think it's still on TV. I think I get a grand total of $3.20.
That's awesome, though. That's cool.
Yeah.
So I guess last thing, as far as coaching, I don't remember, did you work with the Angels for a little while after your career was over?
No, never did.
Okay.
Never.
Okay.
No, my whole thing was so like I said, I was done playing in '93. Spent about 5 or 6 years at Dana Hills.
Yeah.
All high school.
Yeah.
And then my kids started over at Santa Margarita, so I went over to Santa Margarita, and that's all I've been doing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. And of course, you're also a great golfer, so I'm sure you got plenty of time for that.
I've had plenty of time over the years. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. Did you play a lot during your career? Or
I played only in the off season. I never played during the season. I didn't want anybody to get the wrong idea. There were guys that I played with that brought their clubs on the road.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't want to be that guy.
Yeah.
Because I go out and give up 3 in the first, and I'm out in the 4th inning. And what'd you do 2 days ago? Oh, you went golfing. Okay, I got you. I didn't want to be that guy. I didn't want to.
I'm with you on that, man.
Well, I got all the time in the world to play in the wintertime.
Right, exactly. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Well, I asked you a ton of questions tonight, so I appreciate it. Thank you for coming on, and I really enjoyed sharing your story with us, so thank you.
All right, Brett. Good talking to you, too.
Yeah, definitely.
It was awesome. All right.
Thanks again to my guest, Mike Witt. What a fantastic episode with him. Shared a lot of his insights and all the pitching stuff. You really get the inside scoop on what it's like being in the big leagues and the pitchers. So in 2 different markets too, Anaheim and New York. So thanks again to Mike Witt, and hope you guys enjoy that one. Once again, you can follow me at Too Tall Sports Podcast. And Spotify, YouTube, Apple, anywhere you can get it, go ahead and subscribe, rate, and review. And let me know your feedback. I always like to hear from you guys. So I want to thank all the loyal listeners. You guys are the best. Keep letting me know what you want to hear and what kind of topics you want me to cover as well. So Too Tall Sports Podcast, thanks again, and we'll see you next week for another great episode. Take care.